Matt Eberflus came back to town and Chicago threw him a party in the form of 31 points hung up on his Dallas defense. There are a lot of days we don't get to celebrate on this podcast. Today is not one of those days. The Bears finally played a complete game, and we're going to relive that in all of its glory with you. Cheers, Bears fans. This one's for you. So many times on this podcast, Bears fans, we do not get to have a good time because the Bears are thieves of our joy. Not today. We get to celebrate. They played a very good game against Dallas, and we are going to relive all of that with all of you. And we're just going to dive right into it because we have more good news than we know what to do with. So we're going to start the show off as we always do with Top Trio, and Ciaran's going to lead us off. Ciaran, start up the band, man.
This is the first time we've got to have a positive podcast, probably since the Bears played against the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, which was in London in close to a year ago. Very close to a year ago. So there's a lot of similarities from that game to what we got to see. I'm going to start off and talking about some of the offensive points that I was very happy with. Look, the obvious one is with Caleb just played probably his most well-rounded game in terms of matching the touchdowns. He got 4. He probably could have had more, but once he got to the second half of that game, the Bears are just control the game, try and run the clock down. But again, the last time Caleb threw for 4 touchdowns was against the Jaguars, but he did throw a pick in that game. So I think he was just more in control. Obviously, the talk is going to be around the flea flicker, which I think I've watched 50 times since that has gone on. It's more to do with his athleticism and then him having about half a second to launch the ball 65 yards right into the pocket of Luther Burden, which I was delighted to see him just be more involved in the offense because, again, it's your top second round pick and he showed that he does have value to this offense, both that but also the third down play in, or the third or fourth down play in. I think it was the third quarter where Caleb fitted through it 3 defenders and got it to him. And I think Luther it was a nice surprise to see him out there, but also to see him be a valuable part of the offense. Because you do need to see that. The fact that Caleb got the 4 touchdowns, but you get a touchdown to Rome, to Cole, to DJ, and to Luther. Those are positive signs. We said it prior to the season. This offense under Ben Johnson is not predicated towards just one receiver getting most of the yards, getting most of the touchdowns. There'll be a week where there'll be Zacchaeus that might score the winning touchdown for you, or Luther. I think I mentioned there'll be a game where he might get over 100 yards and get a touchdown when he might not do too much in another game. Same thing, like DJ hasn't had all the yards, hasn't had all the receptions, but some of the key plays on yesterday was with DJ. And obviously it's great to see him get in the end zone as well and getting his touchdown. But I think yesterday was the first time Caleb kind of showed what we keep hearing prior to games, that Ben Johnson wants him to be that point guard type quarterback. Yesterday against the Cowboys was the first time I think he's successfully done that.
Yeah, he was everything that I think people have been hoping to see inside of a single week. You saw the incredible athleticism on the flea flicker. You didn't have to see it with him running for his life, which has been highlighted and has been a real bonus for the Bears, but that's not a positive, right? It's not something you want to see. So being able to spread the ball around, being able to have contributions from the rookies. Colston Loveland was, he got targeted 3 times. He fought through on that long reception. He got the 31-yarder. He got blasted coming off the line of scrimmage. It's good to see him contribute. We all hold our breath a little bit on the hip injury, and then it gets reported, hey, it's going to be all right. maybe week to week at worst. That's awesome. Burden over 100 yards, touchdown, 15 yards on a kick return as well, contributing on special teams. Even Shamar Turner got into the act on defense. He had 23 snaps, which was, again, good to see to keep people fresh. So it's a really good combination of contribution from the youth, Ben Johnson's system working as it should, Caleb having time. We'll talk about that. But overall, from the offense, it really just felt like, oh, this is what they meant. This is why they went out and got all those weapons. This is why they rebuilt the offensive line. This is what Ben wants to see when he's talking about potential and he sees growth and progress. And we have seen growth every week from Caleb, but this was it coming together on one stage along with all those elements on offense. And all of a sudden you got what you got, which was a dominant victory by the Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone will give the plaudits to the offense because look, that's what we expected from Ben. But a lot of our concerns last week were surrounding the defense and how would they hold up. And we were talking about some of the strategies that could be employed, where you can get uber aggressive or you can let the play be in front of you and not get beat deep with the big play. And they did both, where they kept it more simple for guys like Tyreek, who just needed a bit of a confidence boost, which, look, when you get a turnover that ultimately the Bears score after, that is a massive confidence boost. And he played like a corner who had the confidence like he had in his rookie year. And this is some of the things we asked for, where it was like, do simple better. And that's what he was doing. So I was really happy with that. I like the fact that they were kind of giving Dallas kind of the short passing game, but then a key component of that was tackle really well and swarm to the football. And that's what the Bears did. I think Noah Sewell probably, I don't know what his tackle count was at the end, but it seemed every time he was there, he wasn't missing. And I think he has been a very nice addition to the defense in terms of playing more this year. So that was something I was happy with. But then also we mentioned as well, you can go uber aggressive, and what I liked was Dennis Allen adding some parts to the defense that we didn't really see, where on a lot of third downs he was showing blitz, and Dak towards the end of the game had no idea if the Bears are going to blitz him or not. And that's what a coach like Dennis Allen can give you when you are struggling in terms of numbers in the defensive backfield. And like, it'll get better when guys like Kyler can play, but like, if you're able to confuse a quarterback that gives your corners a couple of extra seconds, that can be the difference between you giving up a big play or getting off the field. And I have to give kudos to Dennis Allen. I think he coached really well, or he coached really well in that game. And yeah, he deserved his money in that game for what he was able to put together.
It's very funny to listen to Tom Brady talk about Dennis Allen and the ire in his voice. Like, I have to say nice things about Dennis Allen. He made it harder on me than anybody else. That's coming from the all-time GOAT. And again, we knew Dennis Allen could coach, but the defense looked so lost through the first 2 weeks. And I think the complete effort from them in terms of speed, the secondary looked so much more sure of what their assignments were. We didn't see the busted coverages that maybe Dallas just missed, like we did against Detroit, where Jameson Williams was running wide open in the first half. They just didn't throw it to him. That would have been another long touchdown. You didn't see that against Dallas. You saw the hard hit from Kevin Byard. He knew exactly where he was going. Everybody was playing with purpose, and Tyreek Stevenson especially. I've been taking a lot of heat because I said before the season that I thought Tyreek's skill set fit very, very nicely with Dennis Allen's defense, and Tyreek has looked lost for the first 2 weeks. It's been the exact opposite of what I said I wanted to see. It was really nice to see him have a bounce back game, play hard, play with aggression, play up in people's face with a man skill set. That is absolutely what he came out of college with. And to see him be able to leverage that for the Bears, see the complete tackling, see, detail down to the run fit. There were not as many busted run fits. Javonte Williams ran really hard, but there weren't just open holes where he was going 5, 6, 7 yards without contact. Sometimes he went that after contact, but that's just Javonte Williams. He's going to do that. So to be able to see all these kind of holes get plugged up from last week to this week was tremendous. And you saw the effect on the offense. I know we're talking about the defense, but if you go down 14 points, your playbook is very, very different than if you are even or behind by 3 points or up by 7 or 10 points. So the defense being able to hold Dallas the way it did allowed the offense to not get bogged down when they missed a throw or didn't convert a third down. It wasn't that sort of gloom and doom. It was complementary football, one side supporting the other, offense putting up points, defense saying, hey, we'll get you the ball back. They got a bunch of turnovers for the first time, 3 interceptions and a fumble recovery. Those are just extra possessions. All that takes pressure off your offense. And I think Dennis Allen deserves a huge kudos because he and that defense had a lot of work to do. And we called him out last week and said, fix it. And they did. And the result for the Bears was a very complete game on both sides of the ball, and it was awesome that it lined up that way because it usually doesn't, especially not in Chicago, but kudos to them for that. Leads into my point of emphasis or interest for the week, which is this isn't even the best game the Bears can play. I know it was so much better than what we have seen out of the first 2 weeks, but it was far from perfect. This was not an ideal game for the Bears. It was really good and a dominant win, and they didn't even have the pedal all the way down to the floor. So the run game still struggled. Swift averaged 2.5 yards per carry. Monongai got some more show in this game, which was nice, but he averaged 2.7. He ran really hard. He caught the ball nicely, but that is not a run game that's going to scare any defense in the National Football League. So that's a place where the Bears have room for improvement. And Caleb still missed throws. He had the second most off-target completions in the NFL this week. The only person that was worse was Michael Penix. He had 7. Caleb had 6. You know, the reason it didn't matter this week? All those extra possessions, your success on offense, the fact that you weren't setting yourself back on drives. All of those things made the misses not matter as much, and the offense could still come out, play loose, execute the offense, and, have a good time doing it and be effective. And that is such a shift from what we saw over the first 2 weeks. I just want Bears fans to know, don't get too low from the first couple of weeks. Don't get too high. I'm not saying this team's going to rage through the playoffs, but know that this is far from their very best effort. It's way better than what it was, but they didn't even top out this week.
Yeah, what I liked is Caleb when he did miss some of those. Even Brady kind of mentioned in the broadcast that when he missed some of those throws that 95% of the time he needs to be hitting, it seemed like the next play after that he was making up for some of the mistakes that he was making. And that's what you want to see from a young guy. Look, obviously he's in a new system, and it's good to see him be able to bounce back, him to be able to have success with the offense, because again, football is a very confidence kind of based sport. Like if you people are going to talk about it against the Dallas Cowboys defense, but at the end of the day, if you're expecting to do that, like, it's good to see him have that success, because you're not going to come up against amazing defenses every single week, and you're not going to come up against terrible defenses. So when you do come up against a defense that is struggling and that you match up well against, you should be scoring, and that's exactly what he did. And like, it gives him confidence moving forward. It gives the Bears offense a bit of confidence, and even the fact that they were able to halt the Dallas pass rush, it gives him more confidence in his line in front of him, which is something that he hasn't been able to develop because he spent an entire year getting killed. So if he can get a couple of games here where he's not getting sacked and he can just trust what his protection is giving him, that's when you'll see a better Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he's going to be able to relax even more. That, some people call it a jumpiness in the pocket, or is just willingness to sort of turn on the afterburners early so he can escape, again, has been effective. But when he doesn't need that, that'll get throttled down, and the on schedule pieces of the offense that everybody's been crying for, you'll just see more of them. You did see them yesterday. He made some extremely high level throws. We already talked about the flea flicker. That was just athletically, that was an incredibly difficult play. But there was a play later on, long throw over the middle, Luther Burden, that was between a high-low concept. He had to fit it in over the linebackers. There's an end zone angle of that Nate Tice posted, and I reposted because I love that angle. The TV angle makes that throw look pretty pedestrian. It's kind of down the hash mark. You look at it from the end zone angle, Caleb has to drive that ball a good 30, 35 yards. He did it on a line just above the fingertips of the linebacker, fit it in perfectly, hit Burden in the chest. That is a high degree of difficulty throw for an NFL quarterback. It is an in-structure throw that was in the play. It was his second or third read on that play. And everybody's been like, when is that going to happen? When is he just going to hit what Ben's drawing up for him? It was the perfect example of all of that coming together. It's a chunk play. This offense needed explosives like I need air, and they found them this week, and it made a huge difference. And the things that we both called for last week that helped a ton was 0 pre-snap penalties on offense. On average, remember, the Bears have been averaging over 6 pre-snap penalties on offense per week. The NFL average was just over 2.34, so they were just about tripling up on that. And 0 sacks given up. We're going to talk about this in our stat of the week, but again, that protection went from not great and having a lot of holes in it to not giving up a single sack. And Caleb didn't even have to use that escapability that we've seen him use the first 2 weeks. So he had a clean pocket, and he didn't have to earn it with his exceptional feet and athleticism. So both of those things were really good. Work still to do. You got to get more production from the running back spot. DeAndre Swift is not getting it done. He is getting exactly what is blocked and no more. And more often than not, you see him make the wrong choice. If he's supposed to go straight, you'll see him turn left, stutter step, and run into the back of his offensive lineman. If he's supposed to go to the outside, he'll hesitate, cut up, then try and get to the outside, get caught, and dragged down. And he's just not a back that's going to create a lot, despite the fact that the Chicago offensive line, again, had more than a yard before contact that they were, quote-unquote, giving the running back for free, which was among the best in the NFL. Swift just can't pay that off on a regular basis, and the Bears are going to need to do something, whether it's trade, whether it's scraping somebody off a practice squad, both at this point. They need more production because people are saying what needs to happen for them to run the ball better. And the answer is they need a running back who makes more out of the opportunities that they've been given, because the offensive line is creating those opportunities. Have to limit the off-target incompletions. We talked about it. They didn't hurt the Bears nearly as badly this week as they have in past weeks, but they're still there. A lot of it looks mechanical to me. Caleb just kind of has that natural drop arm angle. He'll get his feet sideways instead of straight ahead, or vice versa on a given throw, and he just he's got so much gas in his arm, he'll just flip it over somebody's head, and that doesn't give him a chance. So every quarterback has those. Every quarterback has misses. Caleb has more than most, and he just has to dial that down and then continue to find ways to pressure the quarterback. In the first 2 weeks, the Bears defense had 9 pressures in true dropback situations for the opposition. This week alone, they had 13. And you saw the effect of that pressure on an opposing offense. It kept them off balance. It kept their quarterback making decisions that he shouldn't have been making. Yes, he was missing his top weapon in CD for most of the game. I get it. You're going to see other offenses that are missing key playmakers. Pressure will always help you, and it made the coverage look better as well, which the Bears desperately needed. Again, remember, Jalen Johnson not playing in this game. Sounds like he's going to get core muscle surgery, has a chance to return. Kyler wasn't back on the field either. That secondary looks so much better. The reason was twice as much pressure as they've come up with in the first 2 weeks in one game. Dennis Allen's going to have to find ways to make that continue, because the positive effects for the Bears are obvious and sort of unmistakable. So that brings us to a section we loved last year and we haven't been able to get to this year. We're back to it this week. Perfect week to do it. The fan question of the week comes from our friend Opiniosaurus. Eric Bono, he says, which player performance were you most pleasantly surprised with in the victory over Dallas? Braxton, Stevenson, Sewell, or other? Ciaran, I'll give you the first crack.
I was thinking about this, and normally I maybe would have went Sewell, but I actually think he's played pretty well to start the season
Yep.
regardless. So I'm actually gonna cop out and go for the more obvious answer here, and I think I mentioned it earlier in the podcast here, Luther Burden. For a guy didn't really get involved, wasn't involved in the offense in the first 2 weeks, and then is involved in a very big way, both in the offense but also on special teams as well, where he did look dangerous. He was making the right decisions. And again, like you saw him, obviously, look, the chunk play, everybody's going to talk about the flea flicker, but like you mentioned the very difficult throw that Caleb had to make. Again, he had to make sure that he was at the right part of the zone as well, which he was. But even the end around where he looked dangerous, to be able to, even if it's just kind of stop the Dallas defense a little bit. Look, they weren't pressurizing Caleb a ton, but those types of plays will help when you do come up against a team where they are getting a lot of pressure, because motion is one way of halting that pressure for a few seconds. And when you have a guy like Luther Burden that's able to do that, so getting to see him be involved in different facets of the offense, it was really encouraging, because you need more weapons, because this is, like I said, this is not an offense that you need to be targeting like Rome like 8, 9, 10 times a game. Like, this is one where you need to be able to spread the ball around. To be able to do that, you need everybody being involved and being reliable. Luther was reliable, and it was nice to see. So for me, Luther Burden was my kind of breakout performer of the game.
Awesome contribution, and always great to see rookies get involved, especially at positions that typically take a little bit. If you're a receiver and you're learning multiple spots, it can often take you several weeks before anything happens. That was a very big game. Yes, a few big plays. That's the way it turned out, but Luther Burden, plenty of ability, great size in the offense. That gives him versatility, special teams as well. Really fun to see. For me, of the three he mentioned, it's going to be Tyrique Stevenson, because he's had such a down first couple of weeks, and they have injuries in the secondary right now. Terrell Smith went down with a knee injury preseason. Jalen Johnson's going to be out for a while with surgery. Kyler hasn't come back yet. They need their cornerbacks, and they haven't had them. In fact, they've gotten, I would say, a negative contribution from their cornerbacks through the first 2 weeks. Tyrique came out, played aggressive, played fast, showed that physical man presence is what he was drafted for. It was so nice to see that rebound performance. For that reason, I'll give it to him. Braxton, I always felt like was going to come back. He was just getting stronger from injury, and I didn't know when it was going to be, this week, maybe next week, before he rounded into form and played a complete game. But in our stat of the week, you will find out he played a very complete game. So kind of the biggest swing, again, like you, I think Noah Sewell has been athletic and consistent and really good, which is, it's nice. We had questions about linebacker depth for this team, and Noah Sewell is very athletic, and he's showed up week after week. Contact, again, right reads, right fits, and the ability to keep with the low passing game, which is really important in this defense. So I'm going to go with Tyrique Stevenson just because of the turnaround nature, and man, did he need it. It's got to feel good for him. Be a confidence booster, just like we talked about the confidence boost for Caleb on the offense, to come out and say, nah, I can do my job. I can play at a high level. And when I do, this team will win if all my teammates do the same thing. So thanks so much for the question, Eric. We will send you a sticker in the mail. As always, it will have the new podcast logo on it, which is a fun twist. But every week we will ask for our fan question of the week from here on out. So if you've got questions about the Bears and you want us to answer them, make sure to respond to those tweets either on X or on Bluesky. That brings us to our stat of the week. For this week, it's a tie. I couldn't decide because they both make me so freaking happy. First game of Caleb's career, 17 starts where he was not sacked. And man, you can see the difference. It's the same for any offense. Green Bay, who, I don't know, played some other team from the upper Midwest and couldn't match them, allowed a lot of pressure this weekend. They looked like a very different offense. Any offense that allows pressure is not going to be as effective. The Bears shutting out pressure for the first time in Caleb's tenure is a big deal. And next gen stats credits the aforementioned Braxton Jones as only the fourth left tackle this year not to allow a single pressure in a game. Now, for contrast, in weeks 1 and 2, Braxton had a team-high 12 pressures on 79 pass blocking attempts, a 15.2% pressure rate, which is pretty darn high for those of you that don't follow those rates. Rebounding to basically have none in 1 week is really representative of what the rest of the team did, the rest of the offense, the rest of the offensive line, the rest of the defense. So many holes got plugged in 1 week between last week and this week, and that is coaching, folks. And this struck me on Sunday, Ciaran, and I'm going to share it with you. So, yeah, Matt Eberflus came back to town, and I've been telling all my friends that cover the Dallas team, hey, man, buckle up, might be a long season. They were like, is it really that bad? I was like, well, it won't start out that way, but it might get that way. So that's one thing. But that got me thinking, who else are people complaining bitterly about in the league this year? And BTJ had a massive freshman season, and there has been a lot of well-aimed criticism at the Jacksonville passing game. Now, the Jacksonville running game under Liam Cohen has been the league's best. The screen game has been among the league's best, but BTJ, everybody's like, what's wrong with BTJ? Who's the passing game coordinator in Jacksonville?
Mr. Shane Waldron.
That would be Shane Waldron. And then I was watching the Sunday night game, and the Chiefs offense. Man, it doesn't look like the Chiefs offense. They're struggling. They can't put up points. It's just Patrick Mahomes' legs and penalties. What's up? Who's the offensive coordinator in Kansas City?
Matthew Nagy?
Yeah, Matthew Nagy. Huh. Funny that. Just some food for thought there, Bears fans. Anyways, we get to celebrate the fact that Ben Johnson is the head coach and things are turning around. And it is really, really nice to see. Now then, for some people that might not be as happy this week as they were last week, although some of them may be, our colleagues around the NFC North, we will bring you North Watch. They will give you updates on the Vikings, Lions, and, I don't know, some other team. And I just can't wait to hear Tom Grassi's this week. No reason
at all.
The Minnesota Vikings pulled off one of the most dominant wins in franchise history this last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they did that through a historic performance from cornerback Isaiah Rodgers, who put together, I believe, the only 99.9 PFF grade in their history, and he accomplished that by returning 2 turnovers for touchdowns, one a pick deflected off of Harrison Smith, who returned to the lineup healthy. That was a big deal. And another, a fumble that he caused against Noah Fant. In addition to that, he caused an additional fumble recovered by Jeff Okudah, and he had a pass deflection in the end zone, a truly outstanding performance. But we saw good performance across the defense, whether it was Jonathan Bernard, Dallas Turner, or returning Andrew Van Ginkel. It was a great day for the defense. Then they gave up 3 points until the final frame of the game in the fourth quarter. A meaningless touchdown from Jake Branning brought it to 10 points against the Vikings 48. And this is just 1 week removed from a panic button performance against the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to cause some debate among fans. Carson Wentz as a backup quarterback was fine, which is enough for us to not have enough information to see what the debate is going to be when J.J. McCarthy returns after the bye week, a week 7 performance against the Philadelphia Eagles that to look forward to. But before that happens, next week it's going to be up against the Cleveland Browns, their dominant, maybe demonic defense that just took down the Packers. So we'll see kind of who has the best defense of those two teams, what they'll be able to do with their make-do quarterbacks, whether or not the return of Christian Darrisaw to the lineup is going to be able to at least slow down Myles Garrett.
What's going on, everybody? Nick Baumgartner here with your Lions update. Huge win for the Lions on Monday Night Football at Baltimore in a game where Detroit is able to do something that very few teams do to the Ravens, which is go into Baltimore and kind of bully the bullies. Lions rush 38 times for 224 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also get 202 pass yards on 20 of 28 passing and a touchdown from Jared Goff. In one of the most complete performances of the Dan Campbell era, maybe the most complete performance of the Dan Campbell era, and really one of the best wins, regular season wins the Lions have had in a long time, or as good as any as they've had in a long time. Like to be able to go into Baltimore and do this was a big deal. I've always said, if you know me or listen to my show, Welcome to Detroit with Colton Pouncey, shameless plug. We talk about this all the time. When Dan Campbell took the Lions job, the Ravens, their program, their identity, their culture, their everything was kind of his model in so many ways for what the Lions have become. And I think that Brad Holmes also drafts with a lot of the similar traits in mind that you see from Ravens. A lot of the times that we see the Ravens like a guy, the Lions also really like that guy too. They like a lot of the same players. They look for a lot of the same things. And so this is a litmus test game for the Lions, I think, in many ways. And they passed with many flying colors. So after a really rough start against a very good Green Bay team, suddenly a couple weeks later now the Lions are 2-1 with a really nice path to maybe go on a little bit of a run here. You got Cleveland up next and then a Joe Burrow-less Bengals team after that. So things are looking really good now for Detroit. Offense looks great. That's another terrific week for John Morton and Dan Campbell. And then Kelvin Shepard, new defensive coordinator, has also been outstanding. So great bounce back the last 2 weeks for the Lions, and things are looking up again in the Motor City.
It is with a heavy heart that I come to you today to announce that the Green Bay Packers will not be going undefeated this season. And it turns out that they're going to be the only team in the NFC North that's not going to win this week. So, your Bears program, I bet you're real happy. But let's talk Packers here. Obviously, that was a pretty big collapse. The good news is that, one, it's an AFC team, so it shouldn't matter too much in the standings until we start talking about seeding later on. But in terms of the division, not going to make a huge deal. The second thing is the Packers defense looked really good. To hold them to only 13 points, the offense should do enough to win that football game. And unfortunately, losing Zach Tom in the very beginning of that game and Aaron Banks as the game went on, not really great for the O-line, and the Packers are not going to have to face a pass rush that's going to be at the level of the Cleveland Browns, unless the Lions decide to sack, 7 times every single time. So there's some good news. The bad news is the Packers do need to get healthier. On top of that, it was just a bunch of really bad mistakes that led to this loss. Of course, the Jordan Love interception did not help things, and it was just very, very ill-timed. But ultimately, I'm not really worried about the Packers. They're still sitting at 2-1, and honestly, if you asked me before the season, hey, would you take the Packers being 2-1 after going through the Lions, Commanders, and Browns? I think every Packers fan would say yes. And so this week, we hopefully have the get-right game with Micah Parsons' revenge game against the Cowboys, because, hey, if the Bears can beat them, we should be able to too.
Tom's tone, a little bit different this week, strangely enough, but hey, time comes for every team in the NFL, and their time was up this week in Green Bay. So I think the scoreboard still leans pretty heavily in the Packers' favor, but like I said in the very first North Watch, we'll see, Tom Grassi, we'll see. And that brings us to someone else on this podcast, because if you think we're happy about this, wait till you hear what Mike has to say in Mike on the Mic this week. We're thrilled. He's over the moon. Here's Mike on the Mic.
Thank you, EJ and Ciaran, and welcome in to another edition of Mike on the Mic. I'm Mike Mercado, and Bears fans, that is much more like it. What a wonderful performance from the Chicago Bears to get their first win of the season against the Dallas Cowboys, getting Ben Johnson his first win as a head coach in the NFL. But now, all eyes are on the desert in Sin City with a matchup against Tom Brady's Las Vegas Raiders. A chance for the Bears to get to 500. And more importantly, a chance for the Bears to build on momentum that they started against the Cowboys. Now, the talk around Bears Nation is, what are we going to see from the Bears after getting all of this praise and adulation after a dominant win at the lakefront? To me, the best way for the Bears to respond is by 2 different avenues. The first one on the offensive side. I want to see DeAndre Swift carry the rock, put the load on his shoulders, and carry that offense by continuously punching the Raiders defense in the mouth. Great big runs, long drives like we saw in the third quarter in that Dallas game. I want to see DeAndre Swift, I want to see that offensive line take the spirit away from that Vegas Raiders defense. And on the defensive end, I want to see them smother Geno Smith. I want to see them make him make mistakes. I don't want to see any special plays from Genty. I think this is a chance for the Bears to take a lot of pressure off of their head coach, off of their quarterback, by dominating on the line of scrimmage, by having a great running attack and for this defense to dominate a lackluster offense in the Vegas Raiders. I think if you do those two things in the desert, not only do you get to 500, not only do you keep the positive vibes, but you start to build a team unit. You start winning games with other facets other than your star quarterback or your genius head coach. You are winning games around the margin. You are taking care of business. This is a chance for a team that you should be able to beat. Take advantage of it like you did against Dallas. Get to 500 and put yourself on the right track for the next 4 games on your schedule. And that is what we have our eye on for this Bears versus Raiders matchup in Las Vegas here on Mike on the Mic. I'm Mike Mercado. Enjoy week 4. Now back to EJ and Ciaran.
Well, that'll about round it up for us on Bear Era this week. A truly celebratory podcast. And man, I don't know about you, Ciaran, but it just feels good. There's a certain lightness of being on a Victory Monday. We don't get it very often around these parts, but when we do, oh boy, it's nice.
It really is. Like, when I saw the Bears scoring touchdowns, my first thought was to tweet, is this what the Chicago Bears, or is this the Chicago Bears, or is this like a different team that we're watching? Because I'm not used to my team scoring 7 points and the opposition scoring 3. It's usually the opposite way around. So it was a nice relief this week. And here's the hoping they can just build on the confidence boost that they would have gotten against Dallas, because as many people will say, there are some winnable games coming up, but they need to be able to put performance level together that we saw against Dallas. So as Caleb said, nothing else matters now. It's all about going 1-0 each and every week, and that's the focus that is good, and that's the focus that we need to see the team have when they go up to Las Vegas this upcoming Sunday.
And we know they can now. I think that's probably the biggest relief of all of this. Is there was a lot of held breath in the city of Chicago about, oh man, did we do it again? Did we find some false prophet of offense, or is this all going to work? Is the quarterback really the guy? Like, you can come away from this week and go, that's not even the best they can play. That's still pretty darn good. That's good enough to earn you wins on a regular basis in the NFL. And that is the cause for a massive sigh of relief. So the Windy City might live up to its name this week as everybody just exhales. But we will see you next week. In the meantime, be sure to support our sponsors over at Homage Clothing, because, hey, if you want, great shirts, the enemy of the enemy is my friend, and this is just a pretty cool shirt. I don't get to wear it all that often, so, I figured this was a pretty good week to wear it. But if you want cool gear for the Bears or any other team, if you happen to be a fan of them, head on over to Homage. Use our link in the description. We get a cut of all those purchases, and of course, Blue Wire podcast that keeps us going as well. So until then, we will see you next week, and enjoy it, Bears fans. It's a rare feeling.